Hello once again, ladies and gents, and welcome to our second episode in our video series for Java database-driven application using JDBC. In our previous video, we created simply our three classes representing each entity of our database, which is the customers, cars, and rentals. In this video, we are going to define our database connection. We'll add another package for this, and from there we're going to create a utility class that is going to connect to our database using JDBC and the MySQL Connector, and also add some classes which will be our data access objects for each of the entity that we are working with in our database. So let's get to it. First of all, we are going to create a new class, or not new class, but new package, and that package is going to be called DB. So com.lentrix.demos.db will be our new package. And in that package, we're going to add our first utility class. We'll just call this class DB with capital. And this is where we put our connection. The DB is in the default package. We should move that out into the DB package and refactor. There you go. Okay, so now first let's import the things that we need here. It's going to be java.sql.connector. As well, we are going to need java.sql.driverManager. Okay. What's wrong with this? Not connector, but connection. Okay. Now, inside of here, we're going to create a static method which will return a connection. I'll just call this con. And we have to make this throws and SQL, or just a plain exception. Okay, so here is where we're going to do class that for name. This is where we identify the driver that we're going to use for our connection. And the driver we're going to use is com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Now that we have identified our driver, we can now use the driver manager to create a connection. So we can return it. Return driver manager that get connection, and we're going to provide our connection string. Our connection string will start with JDBC :MySQL : / and then the host where our database is going to be. In this example, we'll be using the database server from my computer right here, so it's going to be localhost. And then we have the name of our database, which is car rentals. Next is we provide our database user. I'll be using the root user for my example. I didn't have any password for that. Of course, if you are deploying this to a real world application, you have to have a proper username and password for each of your database to provide more security for your application. For now, this will be it for this DB class. It just allows us to have a method, a static method that will give us the connection that we need to when we need to communicate with our database. Next we need to do is we code in our partial code for our data access object. So we'll start with our data access object for our customer table. So in our DB package, we create a new class again, and we will call this customer DAO for customer data access object. And then this will also serve as a library for communicating or executing something on the customers table. Of course, this customer DAO is going to make use of the DB class that we just created earlier, specifically for accessing the connection. But we are going to also put a lot of methods in here, because this is a library for communicating everything that you need to do with the customer table. For now, we are only going to put one static function or static method here, which is only to be able to insert data into the customer's table by passing in a customer object. So here is a public, and it's a void method, and it's a static, of course, and we simply say add, and we pass in a customer object right there. Of course, we are going to import our customer class from the models package. What we can do here is, firstly, we are going to create a prepared statement. And of course, the prepared statement has to be imported as well. So let's do that first. And we get our prepared statement created from the connection. And of course, the connection is taken from the DB class and con method. Now that we have a connection, we can prepare a statement. And the statement that we're going to prepare is going to be an insert statement. Insert into customers. Let's bump this down. Insert into customers, then we'll define the fields that we'll be using, which is LName, FName, phone, address, and what's the other one? License number. Okay, our values is of course going to be parameters, and parameters in here will be is using the question mark symbol. So we have 5 fields, so we're gonna need to put 5 parameters as well. And there's an error. Yeah, of course, we should make this throw an SQL exception, which needs to be imported as well. Alright, so there's our prepared statement. Next is we are going to pass the data from our customer object into the prepared statements parameters. So we start, of course, with the first parameter, which is an LName, so it's a string. So we say ps.setString on parameter 1. We're going to put here the customer.get LName. Okay, same thing now, to be followed by parameter 2, and we put here customer.get FName. Next, of course, is set string as well. For parameter 3, it's going to be customer.get phone. I think the third is phone right here. Next is ps.setString for parameter 4. Customer.get address. And finally, we're going to have license number. They're all strings, so set string and customer.get LICNO. Okay, that's when we pass in the data from our customer object into our prepared statement, and then we now execute, update, and that will be it. All right, we'll also do this for the other classes that we have in our model, but we still have one error here. Let's see. Exception. Okay, so instead of saying SQL exception, let's just do the exception instead. The general exception. Okay. Now let's perform this same thing to create our car DAO. Again, let's just copy this import statements here. Of course, without the customer, because this time we'll be using car. All right, public static void add, and we have here a car object. So this will throws an exception and import the car. Then we'll have a prepared statement, which is taken, of course, from the db.con.prepare statement, and do insert into cars, and we provide the make, model, the plate, like color, plate, and year. And of course the values is going to be parameters. Five of them. Let's have an error here. Prepared. Oh, should be using Java.SQL's prepared statement. Oops. There we go. Next again is to pass in the data from the car object into our prepared statement. So ps.setString for parameter 1 we'll be using car.getMake, and let's just copy this to make things quicker. Next is for parameter 2 we get the model. For parameter 3 we have the color. Parameter 4 is the plate. And parameter 5 is not going to be a string, it's an int for parameter 5, because that is the year. And finally, we execute an update. Okay, and then last thing would be to create the new class again. This aim for the rental DAO. Again, we import java.sql.prepared statement. Now we have public static void add, and we pass in a rental object. We import the rental object, and then we have prepared statement ps, which I forgot to java.sql. Is equal to db.con.prepare prepared statement, this will be insert into rentals, and we'll be having customer ID and car ID, date taken, date returned, and deposit. Then values, of course, once again, parameters. Next is, of course, pass the data from the rental object into the prepared statement. PS, that's set string, set int. For parameter 1, it's going to be the customer ID. So in our rental, we get the customer, and then from there we get the ID. Dot get. Oh, we did not put IDs in our customers in all our Pojo. This is my mistake, so we have to correct this. Go back to our models. Okay, we'll add here private int ID, and we'll insert we'll add an ID here in our constructor. And then also we'll add a setter and getter for the ID. And that's it. Now we go back here, and we're now going to have .get ID on our rental object. Let's copy this. For parameter number 2, it's going to be get car instead of get customer. Still, we get the ID. And then this is set date. For parameter 3, this is going to be rental that get date taken, and for parameter 4, let's get date returned. What's wrong with this guy? Oh, we still don't have the ID for the car. Let's do that first. Okay, private int ID. We add the ID here on the constructor. We'll also add a ID assignment, and we'll also insert code for the setter and getter for the ID. There you go. So that should fix the problem here, supposedly, but it seems it's not. Get, there you go. And lastly, for our 5th parameter, it's going to be a set float for parameter number 5, and we get rental dot get deposit. And of course, the last line should be the execution of the update statement. All right, let's do also the correction to the rental object. Of course, we add here private int ID as well, and here insert an ID parameter in the constructor, and then do the getter setter for int as well. Okay, and finally we're gonna add another class for rentals, DAO. Oh, we already have that. Okay. So we're done. So that's how we have set up our DB package containing all the library classes for communicating with our database, including the connection and the insert functions for all the tables, namely car, customer, and rental. So that will be it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. And once again, if you like this video or videos like this, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell button to get notified for new videos like this. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and see you again in the next one.